The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, slicing through the quiet like a blade. I didn't need to check the screen. I already knew who it was. Rebecca. My stomach knotted. Her name alone had a way of twisting everything inside me. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind where sunlight spills lazily through the windows of my childhood home, warming the hardwood floors my father spent years restoring by hand. I was halfway through my coffee, inbox open, surrounded by a peaceful quiet I'd come to cherish until she shattered it. Rebecca never called to chat. Her voice was a dagger disguised in silk, every word laced with condescension or cruelty. At 32, I'd learned to brace myself whenever she reached out. But today, something about her timing felt different, like the electric silence before. A storm, I answered, steady and sharp. Rebecca! Alice, she purred, her voice syrupy with satisfaction. Just thought you should hear it from me. I've sold the house. Papers are signed. New owners move in next week. I hope this finally teaches you to respect your elders. The words hit like a slap. The house. Not just a house, my house. Dad's house, his legacy. Every carved banister, every stained glass window, every inch of this place carried his touch, his presence. She had no right. But I didn't flinch. I took a sip of my coffee, letting her declaration hang in the air like a challenge. The house? I said slowly, keeping my voice cool. You mean Dad's house? Don't play dumb, Alice, she snapped, irritation seeping through her polished tone. The one you've been squatting in rent-free since your father died. That ends now. I found buyers, people who actually appreciate the property. Her words were meant to wound. But instead of pain, I felt something unexpected. Amusement. Because she had no idea what I knew. She didn't know about the meeting I'd had with Dad's lawyer, Mr. Harrison, just days after the funeral. Didn't know about the legal documents, the trusts, the precautions Dad took to ensure this place stayed mine. That's interesting, I said mildly. And you're sure everything's legal? She scoffed. Of course. I'm his widow. Alice. The house was in his name. You may have been his little princess, but I have rights. Legal rights. You lost the moment you crossed me. Ah, there it was. The truth beneath the pretense, her real motive. 3 months ago, she'd announced plans to tear through the house's character, rip out the antique wood floors, replace the rose garden with a concrete patio, modernize everything Dad had preserved for decades. I fought her, stood firm, cited historical value, his wishes, our memories. She backed off, but I saw it then. The rage in her eyes. This was her revenge. I hope you got a good price, I said, my voice light, almost amused. Don't worry about that. Just be out by Friday, she spat. The buyers are eager to start renovations. I could picture her now, leaning back, smug, imagining me scrambling to pack boxes, if only she knew. Thanks for the heads up, Rebecca, I said. Goodbye. I hung up before she could gloat again. A small smile curled at the corner of my mouth. She thought she'd won, but she'd forgotten who raised me. I picked up my phone and dialed Mr. Harrison. The show was just getting started. The house still smelled like Dad, mahogany, old books, and fresh roses from the garden out back. The ones he'd insisted on tending himself, even in his final months. At 32, this house was more than where I lived. It was the only true home I'd ever known. A 3,000-square-foot time capsule of my childhood and his love. The walls still wore the soft blue paint we'd chosen together. The kitchen window where sunlight poured in overlooked the garden he called his sanctuary. And now Rebecca wanted to erase it all. I stood in the living room where the stained glass windows spilled rainbow light across the rug. Rebecca always said they were gaudy, but to me they were proof of who my father was. Thoughtful, detailed, full of heart. She entered our lives 5 years ago. I was 27 when Dad married her in a quiet courthouse ceremony. At first, she played the role well, sweet smiles, soft words, claiming she only wanted to blend into our family. But the mask slipped quickly. She made snide comments about how grown women shouldn't be so attached to their daddies. She moved Dad's vinyl records to the attic, rearranged his study without asking, constantly tried to modernize rooms he'd lovingly restored. To her, the house was a project. To us, it was sacred. Dad saw through her eventually, but by then, his health was fading. The illness took him quickly, merciless and mysterious. In his final months, during one of Rebecca's weekly spa trips, Dad called me into his study. His voice was weak, but there was urgency in his eyes. "Alice," he said. It was the nickname he'd used for me since I was little. "You need to trust me. Things aren't what they seem with Rebecca." My heart tightened. "I've made arrangements. When the time comes, see James Harrison. He'll explain everything." I wanted to ask more, but he looked so tired. Eyes glassy, breath shallow. 2 weeks later, he was gone, and Rebecca wasted no time trying to erase him. Just days after the funeral, I met with Mr. Harrison in his downtown office, small, cluttered, full of dusty legal books and photos of his grandchildren. He was kind, calm, and as he laid out Dad's plan, a warmth spread through me. The house was never solely in Dad's name. Through a series of legal maneuvers I barely understood, trusts, transfers, deeds, he'd made sure it belonged to me, solely, permanently. Rebecca had no legal right. "She can't sell what she doesn't own," Mr. Harrison told me, a rare glint of satisfaction in his eyes. "Your father saw this coming. He wanted to protect you. And the house." I walked through the halls now, letting my fingers drift along the polished banisters she once called dated. I passed the doorframe he carved our heights into, the sunroom where we drank tea on rainy afternoons, the garden path lined with roses blooming in bold defiance. This wasn't just property. This was my father's soul made visible. His hands, in every beam, his love in every corner. Rebecca's plan? Bold. But Dad's plan? Brilliant. I picked up a photo from the study. Us, mid-renovation, blue paint in our hair and smiles too big for the frame. That picture, that memory, was everything. Rebecca. Thought a forged signature and a cold heart would erase what he left me. She was about to find out how wrong she was. Rebecca's call had left a bitter aftertaste. But as I stood in the study, surrounded by Dad's books and the scent of old wood and leather, I felt something stronger than rage. Certainty. Her smug voice echoing in my ear, declaring the house, sold like she was a queen making a decree, had triggered something inside me. But she'd made a mistake. A fatal one. She didn't know she had just walked into a trap my father set years ago. At 32, I had learned patience from the man who raised me. How to wait, how to watch, and how to let people expose themselves. Now, with everything on the line, I wouldn't fight back with anger. I would fight with precision. The same way Dad would have. I picked up my phone and called Mr. Harrison, our family lawyer and one of the last people my father trusted completely. "Alice," he answered, his voice tinged with quiet amusement. "I was expecting you." I smiled, picturing his office stacked with old legal books and cluttered with framed photos of his grandchildren. "She did it," I said, calm and cold. "Rebecca's trying to sell the house." There was a pause, then a soft, almost conspiratorial chuckle. "Did she now? Well, this should be fun. Shall we set things in motion?" "Yes," I replied, voice steady. "But let the buyers know the truth. I don't want them caught in her mess." "Of course," he said. "I'll contact their lawyer immediately." As the call ended, a breeze rustled the curtains, and I felt the first quiet stirrings of victory. Not gloating, not relief, just a deep-rooted satisfaction. Rebecca thought she'd won. But she had no idea the walls she was about to crash into. I wandered through the house, each room humming with history. My fingers traced the edges of the stained glass windows, colors dancing across the floor in soft mosaics. The living room, with its 12-foot ceilings, felt almost cathedral-like. Sacred. Every corner whispered a memory. Dad's booming laugh when we painted the walls. His steady hands restoring the fireplace brick by brick. She wanted to renovate this? She didn't. Know the house was mine, not just emotionally, legally. It was protected in a trust she couldn't touch. That knowledge was my shield, and I would wield it, quietly, patiently, until she walked right into the trap. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Keys on the desk by Thursday. Don't make this difficult, Alice. Her tone was cold, demanding. But I saw through it. That wasn't power. That was desperation. I typed back one sentence. Don't worry, Rebecca. Everything will work out. Deliberate. Vague. Just enough to let her feel safe for one more moment. Just enough rope. I set the phone down and opened a drawer in Dad's desk. Inside was a photo of us, kneeling among the roses in the garden. His smile, wide, unguarded, was the very thing she could never erase. I wasn't just fighting for the house. I was fighting for him. For everything he left behind. That evening, Mr. Harrison called back. The buyer's lawyer has been notified, he said. They're drafting a formal letter now. Rebecca should get it this afternoon. I leaned against the kitchen counter, the same one where Dad used to flip pancakes on Sunday mornings. How long until she reacts? Not long, he replied. She's in for a shock. The sun was low, casting long golden rays over the garden when I heard it. The shrill screech of tires. Rebecca's Mercedes tore into the driveway like a storm on wheels. I was kneeling among Dad's roses, their petals soft against my fingers, when I heard the door slam. Her heels clicked violently. Down the stone path. I didn't look up, not yet. I waited until her shadow fell over me. Alice! She shrieked. I slowly stood. Calm, grounded, ready. She shoved a crumpled letter into my chest. You conniving little witch, she spat. You knew. You knew about this all along. I took the paper gently, almost like she'd handed me something. Fragile. The lawyer's letter had glared back at me, official, damning. Knew about what, Rebecca? I asked, my voice low and deliberate. The trust. The property transfer. You and that old fossil plotted this behind my back? I tilted my head, letting the silence stretch. No, I said softly. Dad and Mr. Harrison arranged it. I just followed his wishes. Her face twisted, disbelief warring with fury. Your father would never do this to me. This is a mistake. I stepped forward, letting the scent of the roses wrap around us. He did exactly this, I said, voice sharp as glass. To protect me, and to protect this house. He saw through you, Rebecca. He knew what you'd try once he was gone. Flinched, her heels sinking into the grass. That's not true, she whispered. He trusted me. He loved me. I gave her a long, searching look. Did he? Or did he just let you think he did? Her lips parted. No words came. I continued, each word measured, merciless. The house was never in his name. He transferred it to a trust years ago, before he met you. I'm the sole beneficiary. You had no right to sell it. You're lying, she said, but her voice cracked with doubt. Check the property records, I offered, my tone almost kind. They're public. He made sure everything was transparent. For when this day came. Rebecca staggered back. A step. The letter trembled in her hand. The buyers are threatening legal action, she choked out. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? I nodded, unfazed. Almost as humiliating as trying to evict me from my own home, or pretending to care about Dad just to get his money. She recoiled as if I'd struck her. You don't understand my relationship with him, she hissed. I stepped closer, my voice dropping to a blade. Oh, I understand perfectly. He told me about the prenup you refused to sign, the money you withdrew while he was in the hospital, the men you met when he was too sick to notice, except he did notice. He knew. Her eyes widened. Her breath caught. He knew? She whispered. I nodded. Everything. And he waited. He watched. He planned. Like father, like daughter. For the first time, she was speechless. Her shoulders sagged. Her rage had no place to go. I pulled out my phone and held it up. I recorded this conversation. Should I add it to the file Mr. Harrison's building on your fraud? Her eyes flicked to the phone. Panic surfaced. You wouldn't, she hissed. I smiled coldly. Try me. She took a shaky step back, heels catching in the grass. This isn't over, she growled. It is, I said, voice firm. Leave the house, leave me alone. Leave his memory alone. Try anything else and everything comes out. The affairs, the forged documents, the bank transfers, all of it. She searched my face, desperately looking for weakness. She found none. Fine, she spat. Keep your little victory. She turned, storming toward her car. As she fumbled with the door, the letter slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the ground. I picked it up, smoothing the creases. The legal jargon was dense, but its meaning was simple. Rebecca had no claim, no power. Just the humiliation of realizing she had lost to the man she underestimated, and the daughter who learned from him. The roses swayed gently behind me as I folded the letter and tucked it into my pocket. They stood, like I did, rooted and blooming, in defiance. She thought she could steal what he left me, but she forgot one thing. I'm his daughter, and I don't lose. Rebecca's taillights had barely disappeared down the driveway when the house fell silent, as if it exhaled in relief. The garden, glowing under the lavender hues of dusk, whispered with wind through the 20-foot rows of Dad's roses. Their petals caught the light like stained glass, soft and defiant. At 32, I'd faced Rebecca's rage and come out standing. But the victory, while just, still felt incomplete. Dad's plan had worked, but I needed to understand the full extent of it. I needed to know how far ahead he'd seen. I stepped inside, the familiar creak of the oak floorboards beneath me. In his study, surrounded by books that still smelled faintly of him, I started searching. The desk was a trove of memory, papers, postcards, receipts folded into corners. Then, nestled under a stack of old letters, I found it. An envelope. My name, Alice, written in his looping, unmistakable handwriting, dated only days before he died. My hands shook as I opened it. My dearest Alice, if you're reading this, Rebecca has made her move. And you've uncovered the trust. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you everything outright. She was always watching. I had to let her believe she'd won. To make sure you really did. Every word landed like a breath I hadn't taken in years. Dad had known. All of it. I suspected her long before the illness took hold. Her love was always conditional. Subtle lies, small betrayals, always disguised as care. But then, I got sick. And something wasn't right. James and I ran tests. We found traces of something in my tea. Slow, deliberate, meant to wear me down. I sat back in the chair, tears stinging my eyes. My throat tightened as grief twisted into rage. She hadn't just tried to steal the house. She had tried to erase him slowly, sip by sip. I played along, pretended not to notice. While I still had time, I transferred the house into a trust. In your name. She never saw it coming. I'm sorry for the distance in my final months. It was to protect you, Alice. At the bottom of the letter, a final note in his familiar shorthand. Check behind the fireplace. Loose brick, third from the E, left. What you find is for when you're ready. I moved without thinking. The stone was warm from the day's sun. The third brick loosened easily. Behind it, a small USB drive and a slip of paper. Show this to the police, when the time comes. Heart. Pounding, I inserted the drive into my laptop. The screen flickered. Then, footage. Grainy, black and white clips, hidden camera angles from inside our home. Rebecca, standing in the kitchen, stirring something into his tea. Rebecca on the phone, speaking, to a man I didn't recognize. Once he's gone, the house is ours. Each clip struck like a knife. Cold, calculated, proof. I called Mr. Harrison, the family lawyer. James, I said, my voice barely steady, I found a letter and a USB drive. He paused only a beat. Are you ready to take the next step? I stared at Rebecca's face, frozen on my screen. The weight of it all, the justice, the risk, the exposure. It could mean courtrooms, headlines, years of fighting. I took a deep breath. Not yet, I said. Let's hold it as insurance. Mr. Harrison chuckled softly. Your father said you'd choose restraint. He said you have his mind for strategy. We ended the call. The USB drive sat warm in my palm. I didn't need to use it. Yet. Just knowing I could was enough. In the days that followed, the house began to feel lighter, like it was breathing again. I repainted the rooms in the soft blues Dad loved, rehung the linen curtains we picked out years ago. The 3,000 square feet no longer felt like a battleground. It felt like home. Each morning, I walked through the garden. The roses bloomed brighter than I remembered, their roots deep, unshaken. A week later, a thick envelope arrived. Inside, legal. Documents. Rebecca's lawyer had drawn up a formal release. She was relinquishing any claim to the house, the estate, everything. Tucked inside was a note in her sharp, familiar script. You win, Alice. I'm leaving the state. Keep what you know to yourself. I read it by the fireplace, its glow warming the room. She'd found the cameras, I realized, probably torn the house apart looking for more. But the threat of that USB alone had ended it. I didn't feel triumph. I felt peace. Dad's plan had worked. Not with confrontation, with patience, with truth. I tend the garden now the way he used to, kneeling among the roses in the evening light. Sometimes I hear his voice, like a whisper between the petals. The strongest roots grow in silence, Alice, hidden, until they're needed. And I smile. The USB still sits behind the brick, untouched. It no longer feels like evidence. It feels like a sentinel, quiet, watchful. The house stands tall and warm, stained glass windows casting rainbows across the hall. It's more than a home. It's a monument. To love, to foresight, to quiet strength passed down from father to daughter. I walk its halls each night, listening to the creak of the wood under my feet, no longer afraid. Rebecca tried to erase that legacy, but she failed. She underestimated the strength that doesn't roar, the kind that waits, the kind that endures. One evening I snipped a rose, its thorns pricking my thumb, and placed it on Dad's old desk. We did it, Dad. The words felt final, but also eternal. A promise kept, a memory guarded. In the end, it wasn't revenge that saved the house. It was patience. Because the greatest strength isn't in outshining your enemies, it's in outlasting them.